All right, so you know how much I love a good deep dive, and this one, well, let's just say it's got me intrigued.
Oh. What's piqued your interest this time?
So you guys have sent in a whole bunch of stuff about this show, person of interest, right? Articles, Wikipedia excerpts, the works.
I see someone's been doing their homework.
Well, gotta give the people what they want, but honestly, I've never seen it. Never even really crossed my radar, you know?
Yeah, it definitely flew under the radar for some, even with all the critical acclaim it garnered during its run.
Really? Like, what kind of a clan are we talking about?
Well, for starters, IndieWire called it a criminally underseen treasure, and those IMDb ratings, consistently high throughout its 5 seasons.
Criminally underseen, huh? All right, you've got my attention. So, what's it all about? What am I missing out on?
Well, at its core, it's about a former CIA agent and a reclusive billionaire who team up to, get this, prevent violent crimes before they happen.
Okay, that actually sounds pretty cool, but how do they pull that off?
That's where it gets really interesting. See, they've got this powerful AI at their disposal, something called the machine. It sifts through massive amounts of surveillance data, identifying people who are about to be involved in a violent crime, either as a victim or a perpetrator.
Well, hold on. Surveillance data, as in like Big Brother is watching kind of stuff?
Yep.
Because that's ringing some serious bells, especially with everything that came out about PRISM a few years back.
You got it. Imagine a system that can tap into any camera, any microphone, and track your every move. That's the world Person of Interest throws you into. And the show's writers didn't just predict the technology, they explored its implications with a depth that's incredibly relevant today.
Okay, now we're talking. So it's like a fictional exploration of the Snowden leaks, but a whole year earlier.
Precisely. Person of Interest tackles this head-on, particularly in the episode No Good Deed, which aired a year before those leaks went public. It's a chilling example of how this show goes beyond simple entertainment and delves into the ethical gray areas of surveillance.
No good deed, huh? I'm making a note of that one. But just to back up a sec, for those who might not remember, Snowden, he was a former intelligence contractor, right? And he blew the whistle on the NSA's massive data collection program.
Right. Snowden revealed that the NSA was scooping up data on a mind-blowing scale. Phone calls, emails, internet activity, you name it. And they were doing it without people's knowledge or consent.
Yeah, that whole thing was wild. It felt like something straight out of a dystopian novel, but it was happening in real life.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Person of Interest so compelling. It takes these real-world anxieties about privacy, security, and the reach of technology and weaves them into a gripping narrative.
Okay, I have to admit, you've got me hooked. So we've got surveillance, AI, crime fighting. What else is this show serving up?
Oh, we're just getting started.
There's more. I'm all ears. Spill the tea.
Well, for one thing, it's not just about the technology or the crime fighting. It's about the people at the heart of it all. The characters, their relationships, the choices they make.
Right. IndieWire did mention something about the show having a stellar cast.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got Taraji P. Henson, for goodness sake.
Right.
And Amy Acker, Sarah Shahi.
Okay. Impressive lineup, for sure. But what makes the characters so special?
Well, they're not just your typical crime drama archetypes.
Yeah.
They're complex, flawed, and they go through some serious stuff.
Hmm.
And the relationships between them, let's just say they're not always what you'd expect.
Intriguing. So it's more character-driven than I initially thought.
Exactly. It's those human stories, those connections that really elevate the show beyond your average procedural.
And speaking of connections, we talked about surveillance earlier, but this idea of found families that IndieWire mentioned, how does that fit in?
Yes. You see, these characters, they're all kind of lost in their own way. But through fighting for a common cause, facing danger together, they find solace and support in each other.
So they create their own surrogate families. That's pretty interesting. It adds a whole other layer to the whole surveillance thing, don't you think? I mean, it's not just about Big Brother watching. It's about the impact on these very real, very human relationships. And speaking of impact, the EW article mentioned something about the show not being afraid to kill off major characters.
Oh, they definitely weren't messing around. And let me tell you, those character deaths, they hit hard. They weren't just plot devices either. They had real emotional weight.
Wow, so they really upped the stakes, huh? You know, for a show about artificial intelligence and crime fighting, it sure sounds like there's a lot of heart in there, too.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes it so brilliant. It's a show that can keep you on the edge of your seat with the action and suspense, but also make you feel deeply for these characters and their journeys.
And Part of that journey seems to involve a lot of action, right? I mean, IndieWire mentioned Jim Caviezel doing his own stunts and Sarah Chahi's character bringing a whole new level of action to the show.
Oh, the action is top-notch, believe me. Intense, well choreographed, and always in service of the story. They don't just throw in explosions for the sake of it.
Okay, good to know. So it's got brains, it's got heart, and it's got action. Sounds like they really covered all the bases.
Pretty much. But beyond all that, it's the show's willingness to explore those really complex, thought-provoking themes that truly sets it apart.
Like, what kind of themes are we talking about here?
Well, we've touched on surveillance and privacy, but it goes even deeper than that. Free will versus determinism, the nature of good and evil, the role of technology in society.
Wow, heavy stuff.
Yeah, they don't shy away from the big questions, that's for sure. And that's what makes it so relevant, even all these years later.
It's funny you say that because it's true. We're talking about a show that premiered back in 2011, and here we are in 2024, still grappling with these very same issues.
It's remarkable, isn't it? The show was ahead of its time in so many ways. And it speaks to something fundamental about the human condition, something timeless that we're still wrestling with today.
It's like, how much control are we willing to sacrifice in the name of security? And what happens when that power falls into the wrong hands?
Exactly. And who gets to decide what's right, what's wrong, who's worthy of being saved? These are questions that have no easy answers, but Person of Interest grapples with them in such a nuanced, engaging way.
It's making me rethink my whole stance on procedurals, I'll tell you that. I always thought they were all about, the case of the week, catch the bad guy, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, a lot of them fall into that trap. But Person of Interest transcended those limitations. It used the procedural format as a springboard to explore these much larger, more complex ideas. And it did it while still delivering those satisfying aha moments that keep you coming back for more.
You mentioned earlier that the characters sometimes have these unexpected relationships, and IndieWire did highlight the dynamic between Root and Shaw, even calling them vitriolic best buds, which, I have to admit, made me chuckle. But then they mentioned a romantic relationship between them, which honestly threw me for a loop.
Ah, yes. The Root and Shaw of it all.
So what's the deal with them? How did that even come about? Vitriolic best buds to, well, something more? Now, that's a storyline I didn't see coming. Guess you never know what to expect with this show.
Right, and the thing is, it totally works. Their chemistry is off the charts, whether they're trading barbs or, sharing those quieter moments.
It sounds like the writers really took a risk with that one, and it paid off big time. I mean, not every show can pull off that kind of character development, especially in a genre that often relies on the same old tropes.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the show's overall theme of human connection, right? Even in this world of surveillance and AI, it's those relationships that ground us, that give us something to fight for.
It's funny you should say that. Thinking back to the beginning of this deep dive, I remember being struck by how Person of Interest manages to be both entertaining and thought-provoking. It's got action, it's got intrigue, it's got these incredibly complex characters.
Right. It's like a delicious mix of everything you could want in a show.
Exactly. But then it also makes you question, the world around us, the trade-offs we're making in the name of security, the power of technology, the importance of human connection in a world that's becoming increasingly disconnected.
And it does all of that without hitting you over the head with a message. It's just woven so seamlessly into the fabric of the show.
Absolutely. Honestly, you've convinced me. I need to bump Person of Interest to the top of my watch list, like yesterday.
You won't regret it, but be warned, it's the kind of show that stays with you long after you finish watching.
I have a feeling that's a good thing. Now, for our listeners who are just as intrigued as I am, is there anything else we should know before diving in? Anything that'll enhance their viewing experience?
Well, we could talk for hours about all the nuances and Easter eggs hidden throughout the series, but I don't want to spoil the fun of discovery. Pay attention to the episode titles. They often hold double meanings.
Oh, I love that. Little clues along the way. Very cool.
And keep an eye out for recurring symbols and motifs, especially anything related to chess.
Chess, huh? Now that's interesting. I sense a metaphor coming on.
You'll have to watch and see.
All right. I'll keep my theories to myself for now. But seriously, thanks for opening my eyes to this show. I have a feeling our listeners are going to be just as captivated as I am. And who knows, maybe we'll have to revisit Person of Interest for another deep dive down the line. But until then, happy watching, everyone.